It's that time. It's finally the month of the English dub release of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Part 1 of 3, according to the internet. So, to celebrate this momentous occasion, I have created this entire marathon on a whim. Because I have wanted to talk about Demon Slayer for a very long time now. It's been one of my favorite anime, and I've always wanted to find an excuse to talk about it. And after I talked about Dragon Ball, My Hero, Pokemon, and Attack on Titan, this felt like the next natural step of ones to talk about. Now, this isn't going to be like a multi-year marathon like some of those other ones, and it's because I think that the easiest way to break down this particular show, instead of going episode by episode, we're going to go saga by saga, and I'm just going to talk about all the essential / hilarious moments, as well as my overall thoughts. So without further ado, let's get this started. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Research Station, which is for anything and everything animation, including Demon Slayers trying to save humanity, as well as TV and movies. I'm working on the tagline. Please excuse me. I am your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to Slayer-Tember. Welcome to my review of the first arc / saga, whatever you want to call it, of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. I think that's how you say it, Kimetsu no Yaiba, however you pronounce that. I'm sorry, uncultured idiot. With the final selection arc. It's the first 5 episodes of the series, and it is pretty much a shortened origin story for Tanjiro and how he becomes a Demon Slayer, or a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. So, yeah, there's a good bit to talk about, so let's not waste any more time and dive right in, because even though this is only 5 episodes long, a lot happens. Like, a lot happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list off every important moment that I wrote down here on my computer screen thing to give you guys an idea of everything that happened, hit all the big notes, and any particular moments that are either my favorite or the most essential, I'll take a minute to stop and talk about them. So, without further ado, let's dive in, shall we? This is what I'm going to consider the replacement of the basic overview. It's going to be a lot shorter than the overviews that I do for Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia, because instead of going episode by episode and reading off every little thing, I'm just going through a bunch of bullet points. So, without further ado or delay, let's begin. Tanjiro returns home to find most of his family dead, and he spends the entire first few minutes seeing them alive, and we see him go down to the town in his village, and we also get his acute sense of smell, and we get how he is a very helpful, empathetic person that always tries to assist when he's needed, which is really nice. And then he ends up staying the night at this old man's house because this old man says that I forget his name, I'm sorry. Editing will correct me later. He ends up staying the night with this old man who tells him about demons. And naturally, Tanjiro just thinks that's some kind of weird myth. And then he goes to sleep, and then he walks all the way home to find his entire family slaughtered. And even though we don't see, like, body parts or anything, it's still very, very bloody, and it immediately sets the tone for this show. This show's gory, like even gorier than Attack on Titan. Which leads to Tanjiro carrying a dying Nezuko through a snowstorm, Nezuko being his sister, of course, and Nezuko, right now, at this point, still being like a fully grown, somewhat adult teenage woman. It's not really made clear in the actual episode itself. But she's the one that's still warm, according to Tanjiro, so he decides to carry her through the snowstorm to find a doctor, which is the first scene we saw in the very beginning of the episode. But then it flashed back and showed us all this other stuff, so it's a bit jumbled. It is what it is. However, Nezuko wakes up because it turns out that she has become a demon, and she tries to kill Tanjiro, growing bigger and stronger as her thirst for human blood becomes more and more insatiable. So, yeah, she is immediately revealed to be a demon, and the reason is revealed later because she was exposed to demon blood. Once demon blood is in you, you either turn or you die. That's the two outcomes of that particular instance. And it happened because Nezuko was trying to shield one of her brothers, but he still died anyway. Moving on from that, Nezuko's humanity breaks through as she ends up crying tears. Like, Tanjiro pleads for Nezuko to break through from her, her demon urges. And it ends up working because her eyes turn human again for a moment, and she cries as she's biting down on the handle of this hatchet that Tanjiro is using to defend himself. And seeing her humanity break through on that one moment, I think that's the moment that made everyone really love Nezuko as a character. Because yes, she's a demon, but she still has her humanity to some extent. Then Tanjiro narrowly saves Nezuko from a demon slayer. This is when we get introduced to Gyo Tomioka, and this is the guy that's voiced by Johnny Young Bosch in the English dub. And like every Johnny Young Bosch role, he steals every single moment that he's in. Then Nezuko ends up fighting Tomioka to protect Tanjiro after Tanjiro ends up getting knocked out by Gyu after he ends up trying to do a quick little ploy to get an attack through, but it wasn't really an attack, it was more of him trying to send a message, because he throws a rock and then he ends up throwing a hatchet at the same time behind this tree. And the hatchet ends up coming down and just narrowly missing Gyu's face as it plants itself in a tree. And then that's when Nezuko breaks free from Gyu's grip on her, because he had her under his arm by that point. And it looks like she's about to devour Tanjiro, but instead she turns right around and starts to defend him. Like, immediately starts to defend him. Once again, showing that her humanity is still somewhat there, despite her obvious demon form. And seeing this, and seeing how these two are much different than what he's come across in the past, Tomioka ends up sparing Nezuko. And then once Tanjiro wakes up from his unconscious nap, he tells Tanjiro to get to Mount Sakiri and find Urokodaki, which is apparently the same master that taught him, so he can learn how to slay demons and avenge his family's murder. Then Tanjiro and Nezuko end up burying their family right in the backyard of their own house, and they leave for Mount Sakiri, which ends the first episode. Yeah, all that is in only the first episode. They packed a lot into just this opening introduction to the series. It's ridiculous. Then we get a cute moment when Tanjiro ends up getting a basket to carry Nezuko, and he even tries to extend the basket a little using some bamboo. And at first it doesn't work, and she kind of just lays in there flat like this, which is already pretty funny. And since she ended up growing bigger earlier, Tanjiro asks if she can also grow smaller, which is how we get the tiny little Nezuko that fits in the basket that we get for the rest of the show. Like, tiny Nezuko is absolutely adorable. Like, just absolutely the cutest thing ever. Then later on, Tanjiro ends up battling his first demon. When he ends up on his way up to this mountain, he encounters a house, and he smells a demon. So he goes in the house, and he sees that this demon is already eating his family. And this demon, of course, attacks him. And it doesn't go very well, because Tanjiro only has, like, a little pocket knife and a hatchet still. He doesn't have an actual demon-killing sword, because he's not a Slayer yet. So it looks like he's about to die. And while this is going on, Nezuko is looking at the slaughtered remains of this family and having horrible PTSD, because it's the exact same sight that she saw before she blacked out and became a demon because of the demon blood. So, out of anger for seeing another family slaughtered, Nezuko runs straight up to this demon and kicks its freaking head off. Like, just no hesitation, just kicks his head off like a football. However, it's actually not the end of this fight, because this headless demon, because its neck hasn't snapped yet, is still alive, and it ends up continuing to fight Nezuko while the head grows arms. Just go with it. It's Demon Slayer, it's anime, it's gonna do weird shit. And ends up attacking Tanjiro. Then Tanjiro ends up being able to stick this armed head against a tree, and then goes to help Nezuko. And then he almost ends up sacrificing himself by tossing himself with the headless demon's body off of this cliff. And then Nezuko ends up saving Tanjiro narrowly, which then leads to the stump of this decapitated demon to hit a rock, finally breaking its neck, which finally kills it. Or somewhat. It kills its body, so its head is literally all that remains now. And then Tanjiro hesitates to kill it, because he's unaware that the body's already dead and he would actually be ending its suffering. Because something you're going to learn very quickly is that even though Tanjiro is a badass demon slayer, he does still have his empathetic side. He does still feel sad that he has to kill these demons, because he understands that probably a majority of them used to be human just like him. So he feels that sympathetic empathy that the other Slayers don't, which is what makes him a really, really interesting character, because yes, he's a badass demon slayer, but a lot like Goku, he also has this heart of empathy and gold right at the center, and it makes him very fascinating. And this is when Orokodaki appears out of nowhere, and he ends up judging Tanjiro because he can sense his aura of empathy because of his hesitancy to kill this demon. Which then leads to the sun coming up, and the demon burning in the sunlight immediately like a vampire, cluing Tanjiro in about how potent the sunlight really is to demons. Like, even one little touch of sunlight, and they immediately just disintegrate. Which explains why Nezuko earlier, before Tanjiro made that basket, she was digging a hole in that cave to try to escape sunlight however she possibly can. And then Tanjiro goes to see Orokodaki after checking on Nezuko and making sure that she's okay because the sun's up, and the sun obviously dangerous to her because she's a demon. But she ended up hiding in the basket, and she's okay. She's in the house of this deceased family. She's sitting in her basket in the corner in the dark. So, with that reassurance, Tanjiro goes to see Orokodaki, who is burying the slain family in their backyard. And then Orokodaki ends up slapping Tanjiro across the face. And scolds him for his indecisiveness and how it can get him killed, and how he has to make sure, no matter the cost, that his sister does not eat another human. And thankfully she hasn't yet, so thankfully he doesn't have to worry about that right now. Then Orokodaki ends up leading Tanjiro to his house, which is like out in the woods somewhere, like far away from where they were previously at this other house. And they end up leaving Nezuko there to rest, and so Tanjiro doesn't have to carry her around. So Nezuko is now sleeping in this old guy's house while him and Tanjiro start their training. Or kind of. First he has to pass a test. So in order to pass this test, Orokodaki leads Tanjiro up Mount Sakiri, and then he ends up leaving him right there in the fog with booby traps everywhere, and says that he has to make it to the bottom of the mountain by sunrise, or he fails the test and he will kill Nezuko. I mean, they don't say it, but it's very heavily implied. So, after taking a bit to actually get used to all the traps and fog and everything else, Tanjiro ends up using his sense of smell and his inhuman amount of resilience to dodge all the traps, passing the test. I mean, he still gets whacked by a good few of them, but he does increase his agility a little bit, if you want to put it in simple terms. And that's when Urokodaki accepts Tanjiro as his new student once he returns back from his test, ending episode 2. Yeah, a lot happens in these episodes, if you can't already tell. Now we move on to episode 3. Alright, continuing on, episode 3. Tanjiro's Demon Slayer training begins, and he ends up leaving a journal for Nezuko to read as he's gone, not knowing that she's pretty much asleep this entire time. Why, it is explained later that it's a way to recuperate her strength rather than eating people, cluing in that she's a very different kind of demon than the other demons that are mostly roaming around this world. So, that's interesting. Tanjiro does struggle a lot against the traps, resulting in some absolutely hilarious reactions. Like, he keeps getting better and he keeps dodging more, but then Urokodaki makes him keep starting up higher and higher up on the mountain with new stuff that he's not used to, and he gets the living crap eaten out of him for it. And then once he's through that, then Urokodaki starts teaching him how to swing a sword. And Urokodaki immediately threatens to break Tanjiro's bones if he breaks his sword. Urokodaki's great, if you can't already tell. He's great. Then Tanjiro learns how to use water-breathing abilities, which we don't get to see him actually use it until like the next episode or so. But he does learn it, and he does learn like the basic techniques. We just don't see it on screen. And it does lead to some more hilarious reactions. Tanjiro is given one last task by Urokodaki now that he has mastered the rest of his training, and that is to slice a boulder in half. And it's a pretty big boulder. It's a huge boulder. It's wrapped in rope and twine with paper tags all over it. And the goal for him is that he needs to slice this in half. And he keeps working at it over and over and over again. And it ends up, nothing he does ends up working. And that's when apparently another Slayer in training called Sabato ends up joining in. And then Sabato once again kicks the crap out of Tanjiro. Like, that's the thing you're going to realize. Tanjiro gets his ass kicked a lot. And something else is revealed about Sabato, but we'll go over it later. And obviously he ends up losing and gets knocked out. But then he's comforted by another Slayer called Mokumo, who helps him correct all his mistakes that he's making in his form and his overall, ability. And then, after 6 months of continuously getting his ass kicked again and again by Sabato, Tanjiro finally battles him again, and they both use real swords. And Tanjiro ends up winning by slicing his mask in half. And that is when Sabato's real face is revealed. He gives this smile of both sadness and proudity, I guess? I don't really know what word to use there. And it turns out that he did not slice Sabato's mask in half. It actually turned out that Tanjiro sliced the entire boulder in half. Yeah, I think you can see where this is going, but that is the end of his training, and that ends episode 3 of the show. And then that's when Urokodaki reveals that Sabato and Mokumo were ghosts of former students who died during the final selection to one specific demon, one that we're going to talk about very soon. Then Urokodaki ends up hugging Tanjiro and telling him that he's proud of him, gives him one last meal, and reassures him that he will look after his sister while he's gone, and no matter what, to please return home. Because none of his prior students returned home. They all died during their final selection periods, adding extra tension to this event. And then he sends him off to final selection. Day 1 of it begins, and Tanjiro battles 2 demons at once, and we see him use some of his water breathing as he decapitates both of them using water breathing rising tide, which is what gets him his first demon kill. Yeah, it's not like with Eren where we had to wait almost 3 full seasons for him to get his first Titan kill. This one, we get him killing demons immediately in episode 4. And then Tanjiro ends up coming across this giant mutated hand demon who eats one recruit and then is about to eat another until Tanjiro swoops in and saves that guy's life, supposedly, even though it's revealed he dies later. And this hand demon turns out to be the one that's been eating and killing all of the previous students of Urokodaki, including Sabato and Mokumo. Sabato by crushing his head with just one single squeeze of his hand, and Mokumo by getting literally ripped apart. Yeah, she got ripped to pieces. Ugh. That kind of crap just makes you shudder. That's horrifying. Not to mention the hand demon himself, horrific design, very, very, very creepy. And it will haunt your nightmares if you're not ready for it. But with that complete, then he moves, then he battles this demon for a while. He gets knocked unconscious temporarily, until the ghosts of his family wake him up in the afterlife. Just go with it. It's anime. It's supposed to be outlandish. And it ends up waking him up, and then he controls his breathing after first acting in rage. Then he gets back up. He starts controlling his breathing. He starts moving a lot faster. He manages to dodge a lot of attacks. And then he gets all the way up to this demon's neck, which is hidden by a ton of arms. Now, this demon apparently has a very thick neck that no other sword has been able to break, which is why and how he's been able to kill all of Urokodaki's previous students. But this time, with the help of Tanjiro using his new water breathing ability, this time water surface slash, he finally kills the demon. He freaking decapitates it. Which not only finally puts this evil demonic demon down, but it also finally allows all of those killed, all of Urokodaki's previous students that were killed by this thing, to finally go home and so their souls can rest in peace. And it's even more emotional because Tanjiro goes over to this hand demon's body as he's disintegrating, and he holds the demon's hand as it dies. And this demon's last memory is remembering that he had an older brother. That is how you humanize villains. Like, yeah, there's no forgiving what he did. The hand demon still did some pretty fucked up shit. But the point is, again, showing Tanjiro's empathy, which is an incredibly important part of his character. And showing how these demons think about one specific thing as they die, it makes you feel bad for them. In a way that Disney only wishes that they could do. And then that's the end of episode 4. And then we go on to the final episode of the arc, where Tanjiro comforts the demon as it dies. All of Urokodaki's slain students appear to Tanjiro as ghosts, including Sabato and Mokumo, one last time. And then they all return home with their spirits passing on into the afterlife, being able to finally rest in peace now that they've been avenged. Then Tanjiro kills 3 more demons and makes it to the safe haven area of this mountain, and he passes the test, and he is now officially a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. And even though the series says that there's 5 survivors in total, I only counted 3 others other than Tanjiro. Those being Kanao, Zenitsu, and Genya, who are 3 characters that will become very essential later on. And then Tanjiro makes it back home, limping because he had to go all the way back down the mountain after all that. And he's greeted immediately by Orokodaki and Nezuko, who finally woke up from her sleep after being asleep for 2 years. Yeah, apparently doing that one kick took a lot out of her. You make sense of that, because I can't. At least not at this moment. And then finally, to close out the arc, Tanjiro is given his signature Nichi Katana and his first orders to go to a village to find a demon who is killing girls. Which ends episode 5 and ends the final selection arc with Tanjiro now an official member of the Demon Slayer Corps. Yeah, pretty cool. Not to mention they were able to stuff all of that into only like, what, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours? Like, it's only 5 episodes. And each episode's only like 22 minutes long. And yet it has this much happening in it. That's crazy to think about. Okay. So that's the basic overview of all the essential moments that I had written down. Now let's move on to my overall final thoughts on this first saga of Demon Slayer. Yes, I'm going to say saga and arc a lot. Please excuse me. But I've heard them called by both names. So I'm going to call them sagas and I'm going to call them arcs. Just deal with the inconsistency, okay? It's called both ways, so don't blame me for that one. It's the month of the Infinity Castle Part 1 English dub US release, so it's time to revisit the complete journey of Tanjiro Kamada and the Demon Slayer Corps to see everything that has led up to this point. However, instead of reviewing it episode by episode like MHA and Attack on Titan, we're going to do it like Dragon Ball and review the individual sagas/arcs so we can get caught up as quick as possible without it becoming too arduous. Because I don't think any of these arcs are longer than 10 episodes. So, doing it arc by arc rather than season by season is a lot easier. Because this one was only 5, and then the next arc, Kidnapper's Bog, is only 2. Yeah, an arc's only 2 episodes. You make sense of that one. So with all that said, welcome to Slayer-Tember, and let's kick things off with the first arc of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Final Selection Saga. Spanning only a bite-sized 5 episodes of the overall series, it tells the story, the beginning of the story, of Tanjiro Kamada as he returns home from a day at the town of his local village to find his entire family murdered in cold blood, with the exception of his sister Nezuko, who's been transformed into a demon after being infected by the blood of the killer. After a brief confrontation, a demon slayer named Giyu spares their lives and advises them to go to Mount Sakiri to find Orokodaki, who will teach Tanjiro how to slay demons to avenge his murdered brethren. After many months of training and honing his newfound water-breathing skills, now he must face the final selection and make it to the safe haven alive, or die trying. While it is a very short saga to begin the series off with, it is a genuinely impressive first outing that does a fantastic job introducing the characters, the world, the lore, and its overall unique style, as well as some really funny humor to give levity when it's needed. Like, this show isn't supposed to be a comedy, but these first few episodes have some pretty funny moments, mainly because of Nezuko being adorable. It's also packed to the brim with many essential scenes to the overall story, like Tanjiro's training, getting his sword, slaying his first demons, avenging Orokodaki's fallen students by killing the hand demon. A whole bunch of essential moments from the overall story are here. And some surprisingly deep emotional moments, and some absolutely stunning animation from Ufotable. Seriously, incredible animation by these guys. And from what I've heard from early reviews from the US sub-release, apparently the animation in Infinity Castle is even more insane than the actual series, or Mugen Train for that matter, which is crazy to think about. The voice acting is great too, especially Johnny Young Bosch as Giyu, who stole every single scene he was in, And of course, Zach Aguilar, Hedo from DBS, David from Cyberpunk, and Byleth from Fire Emblem, just to name a few, as Tanjiro. That being said, though, it's not quite a perfect cut down the middle. The story follows the usual timid character becoming a hero trope, becoming easily predictable. Like, it does follow that trope to a T, and it does everything you expect it to do. So that is one big knock against it, is predictable. A few jokes miss, not a lot of jokes miss. This show can be very funny, but there are some jokes that just don't quite land. The pacing is way too fast. I get it's only 5 episodes, but I feel like you could have maybe paced it out just a little better. It just moves by way too quick. And as great as the emotional moments are, they don't really get enough time to linger, especially in the final 2 episodes of the arc. Excluding the whole hand demon thing. The hand demon and avenging the fallen students of Orokodaki. Sorry, I blanked on the name for a second. Orokodaki. That is the best emotional moment in the arc. Overall, though, this is as strong of a start to a franchise as you could ask for. Sure, it's not perfect, but considering it's only the beginning of the story, it is a lot of bit of levity from these issues, and what it does right, it absolutely nails. This is a damn good start for Demon Slayer, and for only being 5 episodes, it's a great first arc to start the series. And that's why its final verdict is still going to be a high 9 out of 10. Even with its problems, most of them are nitpicks, this was a great watch. It's a great watch, it's an easy watch, and it was a lot of fun. Definitely check it out if you haven't already, and if you end up enjoying it, watch the rest of the series, and if you don't, well, you watched the first arc, you gave it a chance, you can call it there if it's not your thing. Which I understand, it's not going to be everybody's thing. Oh, and absolutely don't watch this show if you're under 18. Because it's very gory and full of all kinds of the crazy stuff that Attack on Titan is R-rated for. So, yep. Now that we've been recording for a half hour and my voice is shot, that is going to be the end of our first Saga review for Demon Slayer. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Stay tuned because we still have a long way to go with Demon Slayer. There are a lot of arcs and sagas in this show despite only being 63 episodes long. And I'm so excited and I'm so happy to finally be talking about this show. Please let me know your favorite moments in the show in the comments down below, your favorite moments in this arc, or just anything that you think you need to correct me on, like my terrible pronunciation of things. I won't judge you. My pronunciation is terrible. And I will see you guys next time when we get into the much, much shorter 2-episode second arc of Demon Slayer called The Kidnapper's Bog.